I just went and took a meeting at my publisher that I'm signed to with Matt Mester, and I said, "Hey, dude, so I think this is ended. I think this band is kaput. So I kind of want to figure out what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 to 10 years. How do I go about writing songs for other artists? Like, how does that happen?" And he said, "Okay, well, yeah, no, I think that's a great forward step. Let me hook you up with some sessions. Let's try it out.
Do some writes."
And dude, within 6 months, I had my first cut, my first gold record. I wrote a couple songs on Seether's "Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces."
Welcome to the Music Combine for this week. Greg, we have an amazing guest today. Longtime friend of mine. Met him when he started off in the band Memento. Got to work with him throughout my career while working at EMI Music Publishing. Not only is he an amazing shredder guitar player, he's also an amazing songwriter, amazing with computers. Well put nickname. Please welcome Space to the program.
So, how you guys? Thanks for having me.
Good to have you, brother.
Sure. Mike's been talking about you for quite a while, and I did used to listen to your band back in the day.
No way.
So, forced everybody to listen to that record.
You were one of very few people.
No way, man. I saw you guys were pretty much all over the place. I mean, from what I remember.
Yeah. Back in those days, that was that record came out in early 2003.
Yeah.
And then it got re-released in September of 2003. And around that time, Ozfest was a big thing. Rock was still a big thing, Yeah, it was a great time. I fondly missed those times.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Think about
I got your stick. You were on a compilation, I think, that I got at Ozfest or something like that, or it could have been one of those things, like the sticker.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. That's nostalgic as fuck.
It's crazy. Like I still, you meet people, and especially since I moved out here to Texas, there's a lot of rock guys out here, and they appreciate rock music. It's a little different living in. When you live in Los Angeles, it's such an industry town. It's hard to find a fan in Los Angeles.
But same as New York, man.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. It's like it's such a showcase town, But yeah, when I meet new people and they ask me what I do, and I kind of drop a couple of things, and they're like, "Wait, I saw you guys on Ozfest," or I had that record, blah 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 blah. It's nice to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, that record was made by some classic people with you guys. I mean, you had Toby Wright producing it.
Yeah.
And Brendan O'Brien mixed it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, I want to share some stories that go along with that too, because
go ahead.
I think, for starters, quick little backstory on me. I grew up in Australia. Did as soon as I graduated high school, I went directly into studying music, and I got my bachelor's degree of contemporary arts and music theory and both production. And then I started putting out ads for, hey, anyone want a guitar player? Did that whole thing, started a band. That band was a band called Tower, which was the precipice to the band Memento. Second singer, myself, and then a different rhythm section. That band won the Queensland Rock Awards, which was like a state rock award kind of a thing.
Very cool.
Won some money, got some money to go and record an EP. We got a fan base, blah, 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 blah. And then it all kind of just, it ceased to exist because we always wanted the record deal. It's that old adage, like, need a record deal if you're going to do this. So we couldn't make that happen. So at that juncture, I ended up being a hired gun in a band called 28 Days, which at the time was the #1 record in the country. It was massive. Justin, my singer from Tower, was doing the same thing in a band called Vast, which a lot of people know. Great band.
Yeah, I've heard of that
John
band.
Crosby is like borderline genius, if not genius.
Yeah.
So as Justin and I are traversing around Europe in different bands, we're kind of like dropping little notes and whatnot to each other, like, let's move to the US. Let's try to get a record deal in the US because we can't seem to make anything happen in Australia. Yeah, and then the rest is kind of history. We just I packed a suitcase and a guitar, came over here. Next minute, we're signed to EMI Music Publishing and signed to Columbia Records, and then as quickly as it happened, it as quickly fell apart too.
How does that happen? So you come to America, and then would you send them demos and a press kit and such, and then they started watching you, and then how'd that work out?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So Justin Carter, the singer for Memento, our singer, kind of really paved a lot of the early stages in forging those relationships. So it's like Missy Worth, who was the manager of
I forgot about her. Missy was awesome.
She's amazing.
Did she manage I'm a Robot? No. Who else did she manage?
Yep.
Yeah, she managed I'm a Robot.
Yep.
Yeah.
She has passed in history with Nine Inch Nails, and she was Jeff Buckley's manager.
Wow. I didn't know that. Holy shit.
Yeah, at the time when sadly he passed away.
Yeah.
So Justin had kind of coaxed Missy into managing this new band that we were putting together. And Missy was ultimately John Crosby's manager, Vast's manager. So Steve Clark, amazing human being and drummer, ended up being our drummer for Memento. He was also the drummer in Vast. And it was Vast did this sort of fork. It was John Crosby and then the hired guns. Two of the hired guns went to Memento. And Thomas Froggatt, the Froge, he ended up being the guitar player in She Wants Revenge. So there's this weird kind of incestuous activity that's going on there. But thankfully, it kind of to bring me to the point of how relationships is so very important. Instead of sending out, you can send demos to 1 million people and never hear a goddamn thing back. But if you're already in the camp and you're already rubbing shoulders, that's the best bet that you have. So that's kind of how it happened. Ian Montone ended up being our lawyer. Most people would recognize him as the White Stripes manager.
Yep.
So there was kind of like, we were very, very fortunate to have all of the right people at the right time at that point in time.
And then let's kind of touch on that for a second. In your opinion, with having all those right people, and I know this story a little bit more than most because I kind of lived through it with you guys.
Yeah.
What were the what was the adversity that you guys faced or mitigating factors you faced kind of with inside that?
Like getting signed or like all of it?
After you were signed, like what was it like on the other side of the fence? Because everybody, I think, has this impression that getting signed is the hardest part of the work, when in reality, I know, and most people know, or most people who've been through it, that being on the other side, you thought you were busy before, wait till you get here.
Oh, that's just the thing. And I think, there's a misnomer across the board to, I think, a lot of young up and coming artists. Obviously it's very, very different now. There's a whole other slew of issues that I think aren't addressed really, but it's like getting a record deal is actually quite easy if you put your mind to it. And I think I'll sort of reverse back a little. When we moved over to the US, it's not like, we were living in apartments or crashing on people's floors or something. We were living in our studio environment, in our rehearsal space. And thankfully, this was this was a gorgeous place. It had some history in it. Some people, we had ghosts. There were people who actually died in the control room.
Where was this?
Hollywood and Ivar. You've been there, I think.
What spot was it? Was your guys' recording studio?
Yeah. It was right across the street from the Scientology building.
Oh, surprise.
Yeah.
Oh, I know where you guys were at. Okay. Yeah.
I used to see, we used to see Tom Cruise drop off kids there.
At the no, that whole area is fucking haunted because it's the old Hollywood Hotel is right around there, where the Hollywood Tower of Terror ride at Disney came out of. Like, that's a real deal. Like, people actually died in the fucking elevator in that thing.
Yeah, it's nuts, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a little piece of news I didn't know. Stemmed from somewhere, right? There it stemmed from. That's the story right there.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah, so we were sleeping. We were in sleeping bags. We were sharing this. It was actually Kevin Martin's space.
Okay.
Kevin from Candlebox, and
wow.
We were sharing a space with him. So the agreement was, we were paying $2,000 a month, splitting the rent with him. It was a gorgeous studio. It had massive, big, high ceilings. A huge place. It was 2-story. It had like a little living quarters, had a bathroom, a kitchenette, a full-on control room. But we were sleeping on the floor, and we would get up at 11 noon, and we would work from noon till about most nights midnight, and then we'd go out to a place called Daddy's down the street, and we'd get lit, and then we'd just rinse and repeat. But I think the thing was that every day we had 3 Australians and 1 American as our drummer, 4 men in a room just writing and playing music all day, every day. But we had a goal, and that goal was solidified by someone like Missy Worth and having someone like Ian Montone as your attorney and kind of connecting all of the dots. So, we would have, one day Fred Durst would be down at the studio and we'd be playing a showcase for him. And then next we've got, like one of the best producers in the world, Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Oh, Rick Rubin.
Yeah, Rick Rubin. Rick Rubs.
It was kind of trippy. I got to meet Gary Gersh.
Oh, wow. At a Capitol.
Every day we're doing a showcase for someone, but we're fine tuning our songs, and we're rehearsing songs at like half speed and then double. Yeah. And then, just
like really getting granular with the process of that. Yeah, that's really important too to people that's listening out there, that when you have the chance to do that, and I think we've all as musicians had the chance. I've had the chance at some point in my life to really get produced and learn how to really write songs and write for the song and literally like approach it from every single angle, get other people's perspective, reevaluate it outside of ourselves, right? I think that process is a huge value added to your character as being open to work with other people like that. 1, 2, the process of actually doing it and just getting better and better and better. And you can always get better, and you don't realize how much those little things that you change and you add to the perspectives that you allow the other people to give you that criticism without fighting yourself on the personal attachment to it is an amazing character builder for sure.
That's actually, you're absolutely 1,000% correct. And there's something that's forked within that too. And I think, Mike, you mentioned what adversity did we face? I think it was all within. The biggest enemy is yourself at the end of the day. So when you're talking about bettering yourself and putting yourself in a perspective where you can be open to outside input, I have found, as I look back on my career, and with all and sundry, with all of the people involved, I can now pinpoint where, and this isn't to say like who was right, who was wrong. It's got nothing to do with that. I think because of hindsight 2020,
sure,
better ability to do so. But I noticed like ego just got in the way massively. So one band member could say, I think this part needs to be like this. And I come from a pop, like I love pop music, but I love my hard rock as well. And I wanted to marry those two things. I think Justin and I both wanted to do that. But yet when the label comes in, like we were kind of hijacked from the get-go, I think. Sorry if I'm jumping around.
No, I get it. I get it. I'm with you. Keep going.
We ended up being courted by, we had, so Dave and Dan from Disturbed had an imprint that Tom Wally had sort of,
put together for them. And
we were meeting with them. We got an offer from them. We got offers from Atlantic, from ran the gamut. It turned into a bidding war, actually. And it got kind of weird. There were some heated phone calls from, some notable people in the music industry leaving voicemails on phones and whatnot. But because we decided to go a different route, we ended up with Columbia Records. I think hindsight, had we chosen some a very amazing A&R person and businessman, David Boxenbaum, who signed Maroon 5.
Yep.
He and his partner had offered us a deal, and it was less money but more freedom. And Columbia Records giving you a chunk of money, but saying that
more
we had
control.
freedom. Yeah, but there's the caveat of control. And I think going with Columbia Records, which was I asked Eric Kretz at a Grammy party one night, the drummer from STP. Dude, here's the deal. I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm gushing right now, but I need to ask you a question. Here's my situation. We've got all of these labels. And his advice to me was well, dude, look at where all of the legacy artists are. I would go with that label. It's Columbia Records, Bob,
sure.
Blah, 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 blah. But we I think we were hijacked from get-go because, Ozfest wasn't really a tour that we as individuals wanted to be a part of. And I don't...
Second stage?
Yeah, they were on second stage with nothing face, actually.
Baby band, yeah. And that was
all right. I love the second stage.
11 in the morning. I remember it well.
I was there, yeah. Just not trying to get in the pit, but just trying to watch the bands.
Thankfully, it was rotating. So, I think we only did, the early spot once. Thank God.
God, wasn't that the year that Jada Pinkett Smith was on tour with you guys with Wicked?
No.
Okay.
It was
another year.
Disturbed.
That was before Jada Pinkett Smith, probably. Because that was later. Yeah.
No, she did an opener on the second stage every day, and I'm trying
Wicked Wisdom or something?
Wicked Ways, it was called.
Wicked Ways.
Wicked Ways. But I thought it was that year, and it must have been a different year.
Probably 2006, because that's when she came. That's when my A&R went hanging out with Will Smith backstage with Jada Pinkett Smith. That's funny.
That makes sense.
But keep going, because this is important. So Ozfest, you weren't pumped up about it. Why? Because you weren't treated well, or it was just a...
It just didn't really fit our... Memento was... We always kind of referred to it as... And before the record came out, the music that we were working on was more in line with if you were to meld U2 with Pink Floyd... with Alice in Chains. That was kind of what we were doing.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And
fuck yeah.
I was just in the studio here last night listening to old demos, and I shoot myself in the foot every time when I do this, because I listen back and I'm like, what happened? What the fuck happened? And not to downgrade the first and only Memento record, although we recorded some new shit recently in the last 5 years, and it probably
the one song I heard was dope.
I'll send it to you guys.
Please.
We'd love to hear it. Yeah, sure.
But I think Columbia, as great as a label as they are or were at that time, because they're a very different company now. I think they just really wanted to put us within the box that they had kind of designated that, okay, well, these are our rock artists.
It's a template. This is the box template, and we'll just throw them in there without even really molding out what's best for them and see how they do in that box.
It got to a really kind of a weird, shitty situation when we started to notice it quite late in the game that we were kind of being messed with. And what I mean by that is, like, Toby Wright was commissioned to produce the record, and Toby's one of the most fantastic and amazing and beautiful and talented human beings on the face of this planet. We
just interviewed him the other day.
Oh, no way.
Sunday night he was on, but we're going to do another episode with him coming up in the next few weeks.
I love that guy. He just moved back out to LA. Awesome. So he was commissioned to not only produce the record, but he was paid for mixing as well. It was all inclusive. And at the last minute, we're told, hey, so we're going to have Brendan O'Brien mix the record. And that obviously, pisses off Toby, kind of shifts the trajectory of like, well, wait, what's going on right now? Now we've got to figure out flights going out to Atlanta, out to what's that studio that he had out there?
Was it at Tree Sound? No, it wasn't.
It's just out of Buckhead.
The one where they did, I know where you're talking about.
Yeah,
they did all the Springsteen shit and, Pearl Jam and everything else.
Funny you mentioned Springsteen. So little did we know that Columbia was trying to get some sort of deal with Springsteen, and they wanted Brendan O'Brien to do the next Springsteen record. So as part of an agreement, Brendan O'Brien got paid $150,000 to mix our record. $150,000. $150,000.
Shit.
If Brandon accepts this payment to, mix this rinky-dink band that no one's ever heard of before, then, you can have
I'll get Springsteen.
Yeah. We didn't know this at the time until very shortly after we figured it out. We're like, motherfuckers. But that's them's the breaks. That's what happens. When you sign a record deal, you're signing over your life, basically, mm-hmm. For the better or worse. And you got to make the best out of it. And we did. We tried to. I think at the end of the day, I think the individuals, Justin and I, who were the principal sort of songwriters, we kind of just went this way. I wanted to be more successful. I wanted to reach more people. Mm-hmm. And I think, and this is no discredit to Justin Knox, but I think there's an element of street credibility that Justin wanted to retain. And by virtue mm-hmm. of that, sometimes there's a caveat that you alienate a lot of people by trying to appease to a certain audience, I guess. I just want to be heard. That's all I ever cared about. But also staying behind the curtains. No one knows who the hell I am, and I'm totally fine with that.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. Like, getting your name out there from where you were back then to where you are now. I've heard of your projects, and it's that mystique behind the brand, right? It's like, all right, who's behind that brand? So you're the person behind that brand. Now we get to see that. So when it comes to right now, what you're doing, how has it changed? How are you getting yourself out there? I mean, I'm looking on this link Mike sent us, right?
My outdated website.
It's
really cool, man. Whatever the song is, digital.
Southern Tracks was Brendan O'Brien's studio.
Oh, Southern Tracks. That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah. Southern Tracks. Okay. And, so what you're doing now, like, tell us a little bit about that and how you're getting the word out there, because we're talking old school record deals, right? And then we're also have a hybrid of kind of giving musicians who are out there that don't really know what to do, right? Kind of an idea of how to calibrate their trajectory of where they should take their path, right? And we're doing a hands-on do-it-yourself kind of thing, because if you were to take your street credit and your know-how and your name and your brand, and then organically have it, then you're putting out content, whatever you're doing right now. And then when you actually launch whatever you're doing right now, whatever it be, a single, right? A new track from a new project that you're doing, that organic reach will be good, but with a little more tailoredness of like putting ad spend behind it and getting it out and actually doing it yourself, you probably would have a much better opportunity for success without, kind of getting stagnant, because you already have the organicness of what you've already done. And then if you put that new school approach to it, I think you'd probably kill it. But we're finding that a lot of artists that don't have any credibility, and how do they build credibility is really just they're putting out their content versus trying to get a record deal. And I have old school bandmates that we disagree on that kind of pathway of going to we're going to get signed route to, why don't we just take the reins ourselves, put out some really good music and really put it out right and build it that way versus the old school record mentality. And that's where
Greg's point, and to your point, Greg, just real quick.
Yes.
Is that I talked to someone at a very big DSP this morning. Actually, the guy's the head of A&R at this DSP.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that where Spotify was trying to sign artists directly to themselves a few years ago and got their hand slapped for it. Because they were actually succeeding in doing it. So where does the label come into play anymore?
Oh, dude, the label is so antiquated.
And doing it yourself, to Greg's point of ads and stuff, I think I don't see any other way out of it other than that.
Well,
that's what we're finding.
Yeah, that's what we're finding.
Yeah. So I'm in an interesting position now. And this might seem weird to say or to make sense of, but I'm finding that credibility has no credit whatsoever.
It's empty.
Yeah. And I think, but I'll circle back to
sure.
But I think by virtue of the fact that it's such an oversaturated market now that people don't have the attention span to even recognize, oh, well, let's go with Space because he gets stuff over the finish line. The product's good and he has a good track record of revenue stream. I'm finding at this juncture of my career, as I launch into new unheard of projects, but utilizing the model that's worked for me, I'm finding it increasingly difficult because there's just it's so competitive,
saturated,
and not competitive in the best way. It's competitive because there's just so much of it, and most of it's not very good.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, and I don't mean to be an asshole or
no asshole at all, man. I think that's a big thing, quality. The quality of what you're doing gets distorted by the static of all the other things getting out there, and then people don't know what to look at, whether it be your artwork drawing somebody into your shitty recording or your awesome recording with your shitty artwork. You need everything to kind of be congruent, meaning you're not, basically as musicians, we're focusing on our work. We're not focusing on really the brand of it. And, we are a little bit in the back end, but we're focusing on, like you said before, we were in a room together. We had people looking at us and we were trying to fine tune our songs and make them the best possible. That is what the job of a musician is to do, specifically, first and foremost. It's become now, nobody really cares about the music as much as the actual brand around the music. So the music isn't the first thing that's being looked at. It's really your image, your artwork, your passions, what your three-dimensional you. Like whatever you're passionate about is what's drawing people in, and then the music is something different. So when somebody buys a T-shirt, right, you're going to implement the cost of that track of $199 or whatever it is into the price of the T-shirt. So if the T-shirt's $21.99, you're going to make it $23.99, an extra $2, and that will cover the cost of that track. And you're basically getting a free track download with that T-shirt purchase, because now you're selling your brand and everything else is behind that. And that's what we're finding to be the case. It's now this facade of, I see people posting all the time that don't even have music out, and their pictures are being liked, and they're developing this type of engagement, which is really good, but they don't have the music out yet. But when they do put the music out, it will get heard because they've been doing this back work all the time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I know that doesn't sound like logical, but that's the way it is, because that's what's going to separate you from everybody else. It's what you're about, your brand, what you're passionate about, whether it be personal development, whether it be, quantum physics, whatever. You're posting stuff, people are engaging, and then boom, you put your music out. Now you have people engaging, and then you could put ad spend behind that and get in front of more people like that, because Facebook's algorithm is designed to give you a like audience. So if somebody doesn't purchase your stuff, or they do purchase your stuff, You want to get more people that are purchasing your stuff. They're going to allow you to get a like audience. It's going to put you in front of more people like that. And now you have a launch pad to start going off of and build off of. So, as our podcast is out, we're only 5-6 months in. We're building an organic reach without doing any type of paid advertising right now. But we're literally built. Right. So if you have credibility, right, and you have that past of success, you can reach to those people that are going to remember, like Mike and I, right? And you're going to get engagement on that from that type of crowd, that nostalgic, crowd. And then eventually you put out your music, it starts resonating with more. So it's like really completely the opposite now before anything. I mean, I see people that don't even have music out and they're posting pictures with guitars and it's like, where's the music? Where can I find it? But their pictures getting like 300 views, it's like, so isn't that crazy?
I think that model's about to break. Because I think the moment people start talking about it and understanding of how it works, that's the Malcolm Gladwell point, right? That's the tipping point.
Yeah,
where it's,
the numbers.
Yeah, it's that is almost over. So like I come from my second win in my career was traversing so going from a guitar player in a band on a record deal, touring around. You come home and you've got to write the second record. That's when it all sort of fell apart. People were going through depressions and blah, 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 blah. It was very, very fragmented and it fell apart. I thankfully, thanks to Missy Worth, she had coaxed me into, I remember before we went off to do our first tour, she said, and I had already had a budding great relationship with this man, Matt Messer, who was my A&R at EMI Music. Missy had said, okay, I want you to call Matt Messer, every other day or at least once a week when you're on the road, and I had no idea what she was doing. I was so naive at that time. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, I love Matt. Matt's awesome. Yeah. To the point where I come into the office sometimes on, when I'd fly back into town and I come and visit. And everyone would be like, space, we've got the message. We saved the message. You're like, what are you guys talking about? Apparently, 3:00 in the morning, I'm leaving a message at the office at EMI, and they've all saved this drunken message of mine, blah, 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 blah. So, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing back then. Thank God I didn't drink anymore. But, all hunky-dory and everything was good. But just developing this relationship with Matt Messer was the most important and most integral part of my career, so that then I could transform from just being a guitar player in a band to, I want to write songs for people's records. How do I do that?
Yeah. So how do you do that? Let's you're going to go into that, right?
Yeah. This is where it gets interesting.
Literally. And this is actually kind of one of the reasons why the band split up. And I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it because I don't want to disrespect the people who are involved. But
sure, it's fine.
But there was a rift that was going on between internally, my singer and I were, wanting different directions. And I just went and took a meeting at my publisher that I'm signed to with Matt Messer. And I said, hey, dude, so I think this is ended. I think this band is kaput. So I kind of want to figure out what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 to 10 years. How do I go about writing songs for other artists? Like, how does that happen? And he said, okay, well, yeah, no, I think that's a great forward step. Let me hook you up with some sessions. Let's try it out.
Do some writes.
And dude, within 6 months, I had my first cut, my first gold record. I wrote a couple songs on Seether's "Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces."
Wow, here we go. This is what we're talking about. The pivot here.
The pivot, yeah. And I was just I went literally from being sort of depressed, the fact that my band had split up. What am I doing? To solidifying a new studio in the same building. That's my studio. I'm got different events in every day, and I just kind of. I've never been a nervous kind of a person. Like I don't get stage fright or anything like that. So I just dove in. Like, let's do this. And I think it's a testament to when you knuckle down and you this is where I think the new model is starting to die off. When you've got all these distractions like social media, instead of posting about how many fucking spins you have, how about, like focus on creating more art and more content as opposed to placing yourself on a pedestal.
100%.
Yeah. I was just saying this to, my team on a new project that I'm working on now. That like if you take a look at like Trent Reznor or David Bowie or Kelly Clarkson or Jimi Hendrix back in the day when none of this technology existed, but were any of those people posting how great they were? No, they were focused on who they are.
Art of the music and what their brand kind of was, even though it really wasn't like, oh, I'm branding myself in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And
right. 90s. It was literally the passion of them being infused into their music.
Yeah, but also it's the je ne sais quoi of what you relate to that artist, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, documenting the process of you working with, these musicians is something that people would love to see. I think that would be, it's like the fourth band member or the fifth band member or how many people you have plus one. It's the camera, it's putting it on, making sure that you're documenting these sessions. It's like that one with the session where they had the collaboration on Showtime. It was the guy from the Irish what is that band? The Mumford and Sons with Bob Dylan's poems, and they put them together and wrote songs at the Capitol building.
Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah.
Very interesting. Regardless of who it was for, regardless of who it was with, I think that capturing that creative process is the magic that people are missing, right? And I think that's where that connection, everything else you said falls off, and where that actually will resonate and hold clout.
And there's an agreement that has to be made there. Well, considering when collectively. When I was involved in this heavily, like doing sessions every day with different artists, the thought of actually putting up a camera in the studio and recording that
was a little intrusive.
Most definitely. It was that was something that's kind of, that's yes, it's the magic that should be kind of
being captured, right?
Yeah, but I think ultimately it gets curated a little bit too much now. It's like, thank God, I don't know much TV anymore, but thank God we don't have shows like the co-write. Or maybe there are shows like that. I just don't watch them.
I don't know. I think there's a place for it. The mystique is always good. It's just a place right now I'm speaking to people out there right now that are overwhelmed by putting out social media and like what they should put out. It's like literally documenting those little special moments. And if you see you're in it, like, you don't have to keep the camera on the whole time. If you're in the zone and you're on the flow and there's some creative conversation going on and you're really feeling it, just press record, capture that, those little moments.
I think also too, is if you look historically over the past, let's say 30 years, it's been that long since the Black Album came out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the biggest one you can think of kind of that BTS style of documentary kind of thing is Year and a Half of Life of Metallica Part 1 and 2.
And I've watched the shit out of those.
And everyone has. I mean, I've slowed it down to see what Bob Rock has on the fucking track sheets. I mean,
you would.
I would. I'm that kind of fucking nerd. But my point being is that, me and Space know that was recorded in North Hollywood, right over here.
Yeah.
At One-on-One. I walk by that place every day on my way to coffee.
Mm-hmm. It's still there. Is it operating?
Yeah, it's operating. It's still there. They had a fire last year, but they've now back up in business. I believe they're back up and running. But I mean, I think that now that the cat's out of the bag historically over time, and with everybody wanting everybody's, where there's no wizard behind the curtain anymore, I think you've gotten to the point where that's you used to be able to charge for that. You could monetize that.
Yeah.
Even in the late 90s, you could still, early 2000s, you could still monetize a behind the scenes video.
I got you. So
that
you're
shit's
saying
over with.
Right. So that's a very good point. That's a very good point. So we're seeing the behind the scenes stuff, and it's just basically being put out there. It's not being put into a package.
Not being monetized.
But what we could speak to with that is doing it like this, not giving too much away. That mystique that we always talk about is needed for an artist and a collab team, whatever. You could put it out in such a way where it's like, this is how we hook people in. More people, more fans is, get exclusive inside, access to our session by opting into this ad right here. Have that email, have that name of that fan, and now you have somebody that's on your list that you're building. List to business for anything. You always got to be building lists, and
that's the key with the it's the war of info.
Yeah,
I think it's the balance act.
I think it's the war. It's like how much of that market. It's worse than what radio was. And this is my point to that. And Space could probably agree because, dude, when you were on Sony, I know for a fact, because I knew some of those people who worked in that situation for you guys, was the spin count. You got prioritized over someone's spin count. Fucking plain and simple. And how that translated into album sales.
Well,
plain and simple.
And the money, I think a lot of people, and this may be, I don't think it's as antiquated because I know that this still goes on. It's the pay to play model.
Oh yeah, 100%. Whether they're giving you cash, like fucking goodies or whatever.
Memento, for example, our first single, Nothing Sacred, cost us $300,000 to go to radio. And that $300,000 goes
for how long though? For like the first 6 months? No, not even.
I think it was like the first 6 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was for the first 3 months because 3 months after that, our second single came out.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the whole payola thing. There's, that money's going into the pockets of God knows who, program directors, blah, 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 blah. But it's the same model, like the same. This is the first time that I've ever had to think about putting together a marketing plan and an ad campaigns behind something that I'm about to release because it's so fun to me. I've never had to do that before.
Right.
Like I'll get into Digital Daggers in a minute, which is post my songwriting sort of co-write sort of element of career.
It's beautiful. The song is beautiful. That's
thanks, dude.
That I just heard. Yeah.
I really want to delve into that because it kind of really set a precedent to how the music industry is now, which is kind of interesting. But we were very fortunate to have a lot of our material in a lot of big TV shows that a lot of kids were watching. And by virtue of that, we gained, every time an episode would air and one of our songs was in it, we would have 10,000 more new fans. So
what show are we talking about?
Oh, The Vampire Diaries, How to Get Away with Murder, Teen Wolf, Degrassi.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah. And you name the show, we were in it. And those kids who are now adults, they're still fans, but sadly that project's dead.
And that was through Sony ATV?
EMI, Sony ATV. So
that's the publishing side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was kind of a shit show too. Just that whole, my career kind of did one of these things for a while. It's still kind of on this thing, which, I'm not terribly worried about it. It's just it gets a little bit frustrating at times because you would think that all of the stuff that you've done in the past and all of the success that you've had, kind of parlay into that's
agreed.
That's I'm finding that that's just not the case. I totally forgot what I was.
It might be down the line. It might be down the line though.
Yeah. Well, see, I've always been one of those guys that. I may have an impatient innate nature, but the long play has always been the best play for me. That's the way I look at things. So I'm never in any rush. I never really.
That's good advice too, Space.
Yeah,
it's never the short money.
Yeah, no, and I see increasingly more that people are going after. They're shooting after that short, that very near-sighted.
And that's probably part of that society too.
Yeah.
Look at
instant grad.
Yeah, instant grad with Instagramification. If you look at it, it's like Instagramification. I mean, I think people look.
Did you just make that up?
Yep, I'm pretty good. Like
that's awesome.
Instagramification.
Good. Yeah. No, you're right. We're always just we follow Russ the rapper, he's like an amazing artist that like did his own thing. And he was saying it the other day, if you just look at your results and look at your results and look at your results, and like you're not paying attention to what matters, and that will come. You just got to be consistent and keep applying these strategies around it, and eventually something's going to stick here, you know. And you could keep going on what you were saying because it's quite important. So you have this right now, you go on this up and down ride. You've been on the high, you've been on the lower end of things. You ended up writing with really big artists. You got in with publishing, really smart. We tell musicians this all the time. They don't really know where to get started because you took what a relationship you had with your band and then you parlayed it into something else. And where that opportunity opened up a door for you, it opened up a whole career for you.
Yeah, you know, and I think being cool is probably, like, when I say that, I mean being polite, cordial, show up on time,
Don't
get
be a
your
dick,
shit done, don't flake on people, and certainly don't abuse drugs and alcohol. I think I fell into the latter category. I got relatively depressed over one of the cuts that I had, like I'd written on that See the record. One I got out of the two songs that I co-wrote on there, one I got credited for, and the other, which ended up being a massive single, I did not get credited for. I got the plaque and the stuff that you can pull up, but
all the accoutrement.
Yeah. On the back end of things, I got that
was a big thing for a few years for you.
Oh, dude, that broke not only my spirit but my heart, but I ended up going down a path of just sort of almost destroying everything in my sight. Like, fuck you. Yeah. I lost my relationship with Matt Mester out of that, like I was just pointing fingers everywhere,
Right.
And
what happened? Like, you didn't get credit for writing it?
Yeah. Well,
he didn't get his fair writer share.
At the time, it was there's an odd camp, and no disrespect to them. I'm a huge fan, and I always have been and always will be. Sean's just a very interesting sort of character. Lovely guy, but has, I don't know.
Probably very South African.
Yeah.
They do business different down there.
Yeah, but
been through it.
It was like, I don't know. It was very strange. There was, at the time, I remember sitting, Sean and I were sitting on the couch in his living room, and we're both watching Brokeback Mountain, and we've got like tears rolling down our faces, and he's holding his baby boy, Bowie. And at that time, I got a call from Barry Squire to go audition for Chris Cornell.
Oh,
and
wow.
Sean got really shitty at me for going and just doing the audition. I'd already joined Seether. I was going to be their new guitar player. And then the Chris Cornell thing came up, and I'm like, man, I want to go say hi to Chris again, because Memento did a ton of shows with Audio Slave and whatnot. So I just wanted to go down, and I played Spoon Man, and Chris is standing right in front of me singing. It was just,
that's amazing.
Who wouldn't go do that?
Yeah.
I wish wouldn't have told anybody. I just would have went and done it.
But also, it's like you don't
Totally.
you don't tell Barry Squire no, you never get the call.
No, right? You don't say no to Barry Squire. For those that don't know, Barry Squire is kind of the glue to the old touring sort of model, where if Marilyn Manson, only because he's on my brain right now.
Yeah, everybody's.
And supposedly now the FBI.
Oh, God. If Brian,
this is what COVID does. It makes rock stars even more crazy than they already are.
I want to reach out to him so bad. So if Brian's looking for a new guitar player, he reaches out to Barry Squire, and Barry Squire reaches out to his net, and blah, 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 blah. He's like he finds the talent for the other talent.
Mm-hmm.
What was I saying? So yeah, at that time, I was also doing a lot of sessions as well. So a lot of stuff was happening. I'm still drinking. I'm flying around all over the place. I'm acting like I'm, a rock star kind of mentality, which you just got to drop. That shit's just so old. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I was just trying to keep up, like, with everyone else. Like, oh, okay. So like, I'm very, I'm, as much as I am extroverted, I'm more so introverted. I'm shy, but I'm not shy. So I found it kind of difficult to play into this game, drinking like Jägermeister every night. Like I just can't do that.
Dude.
Fuck that. No, that's not my scene.
I did that when I first moved to town, man. I think everyone does to a certain extent. It's like you think you're networking in a bar and all you're doing is fucking drinking.
Oh, dude. And this
Destroying
is
yourself.
This is 2006, so I'm 6 years deep. I've already had a record deal, blah, 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 blah. Like, I should know better. But cut a long story short, I think so much was happening that, and again, I haven't had a manager since Missy Worth, and that last time Missy managed us was 2004, 2005.
That's a long time ago.
I've been doing everything myself, which can be a blessing, but also, you can shoot yourself in the foot.
We know about
Especially
that. Yeah.
If you wear your heart in your sleeve like I used to, you can find yourself in some pretty precarious positions where you can kind of screw your reputation, I guess, you know? So that's kind of what happened with me. I got pissed off at everyone because it was an oversight we overlooked the fact that I had co-written this one song. When all the paperwork went to go, it was all finalized. I overlooked when Wind Up, because I was working on a bunch of Wind Up records, artists' records.
Wow, Creed's label, the first label from Creed.
Yeah.
Yep.
In essence,
Drowning Pool, Effervescence.
They had sent me the pre-release to the record. And I'm like, I got all excited. I'm like, oh my God, this record's going to do really well. Like, this might be my first platinum record.
Yeah.
And it did. Yeah. It sold way over 1 million copies. So I put the headphones on, and by the time I think Fake It's the second song, and I get to the end of it, I'm like, oh shit. I wrote this part.
Right.
I'm frantically like, hey Matt, like, dude, we've overlooked something, blah, 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 blah. And it got to the point where Matt had sent the demo that Sean and I had put together to a musicologist along with the final copy. And the musicologist came back and said, it's too generic for us to stake a claim. I'm like, but I was in the room. I've got all of the evidence. I've got Greg Wattenberg from Wind Up saying like, yeah, dude, thank you, Space. You turned that song into a single. We now have the none of that applied to helping my case at all. So
I don't get it. I don't get what they mean by generic. What, the chord progression was used in another song, or like?
It was too generic.
Yeah. So when you try to go after copyright infringement, I think there's 2 or 3 metrics that need to be reviewed when it happens by law. One is it has to be the same exact sequential amount of notes. I think it's up to 6 notes.
Yeah.
No less. That in a scale essentially. That, and then that sounds really layman, but I think it's the progression has to be those 6 notes or those 6 tonal notes in a key,
right,
or a scale that make up that would reflect what you produced,
and couple that with lyric and melody.
And melody as well.
Sound, right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's really, really, that's a bummer, but at least you did make a platinum album, man. Like that's a huge credibility resume thing right there.
Total. I 100% agree. It hasn't worked.
Dividends. It will. You got to put it on everything.
Totally. But I mean,
platinum.
The point to sort of take home there is that really it doesn't really matter, what you've done in the past. I think it's what you're doing now is the most important thing.
Okay. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Yesterday don't mean shit, man. I mean, that's common term right there.
Yeah.
Ensemble.
I'm trying to solidify some, because, I've been without a publisher for, I was exited out of my Sony deal in 2015. And I've been without a publisher since then. So, and I'm still kind of trying to take meetings with people, and it's increasingly difficult. It's weird. Like
it's like they want something that's got a certain amount of streams. Otherwise they're just not interested.
What's crazy is that so Digital Dagger.
Is that what they want?
Yeah. Digital Daggers, like we did, I don't know if this is a big number or a small number, but we did like almost 12 million streams last year.
That's actually
a huge number.
Yeah, no, that's actually considered a small number by industry standard.
Music, and we did no touring, and we still got 11 point something million, and that's just on Spotify. Then there's Pandora, there's Apple Music,
Yeah, right. Well, 12 million, I mean, it's a lot, but it's not a lot when it comes down to what streams are worth and what you actually make out of it.
What they're worth, but also if you look at Drake and you look at the people who are doing billions and billions of spins, and hundreds of millions of spins, 12 million is a drop. And I mean, a fucking drop
most
in
definitely.
the bucket.
And I still make, I make a great living just by doing nothing, essentially, just collecting on those royalties from all of the songs that I've written on records and Digital Daggers. Like Daggers, I think, does anywhere from 150 to 200K per year just by revenue stream.
Do you feel, the situation? Yes. Okay. Daggers spun 12 million streams, and it makes you a decent living. At the end of the day, for 150K a year that you can hold on to yourself, that you don't split with anyone else, let's just say for argument's sake. And he was like, is it that hard to get a publishing deal? I said, it was always hard to get a fucking publishing deal. But the thing is that now it's like the publishing's worth less and less over time.
Yeah.
You're almost
like an insurance policy.
No, not like an insurance policy.
When you're insurance,
it's just worth less.
Some people treat it like
like an insurance policy. If you're smart about it, if you don't take tons and tons of advances. Now, now your case, and you and I have talked about this, and you can touch on this if you want. You were the one who was able to stick around at Sony ATV, where you would take an advance. You were able to pay your advance back and then make money on top of that.
I did it the right way. Oh, most definitely. So, full disclosure, and again, I'm a full I am.
Transparency.
Total transparency. I think it should be shared. I think there's too much mystery in our space that kind of promotes delusions of grandeur.
Yep.
Because there aren't real, tangible, real stories there with real dollar values attached to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. But so when Memento signed, because we were signed as an artist, as a group, as bands, our advance was $350K. We all got 104. Well, we split that 3 ways. Blah 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 blah. So in essence, 350 grand within that type of deal, you've got to make like 700 grand back. Even
to double it.
Yeah, to double it, right?
Or more, to cushion.
Yeah. So what happened with obviously that band didn't make that much money, so we were in arrears. And when the band dissipated, no one else furthered their career. So I kind of got left with not the bulk of that, unpaid, unrecouped value.
Right.
I got a portion of it, of which I had to pay back, and it just gave me more incentive to work harder to get to that 0 point. So that would trigger my option. So for those people that don't know, within a publishing agreement, you have, an array of different terms and different sort of situations, but most of which are fairly common, that are within, say, an 18-month period. They give you a certain amount of money, depending on it's usually like sometimes a 50-50 deal. So if they give you 50K, you have to bring in $100,000 revenue so that you get to zero. And then that triggers an option for you to renew your deal and get.
And there's also expenses thrown in there. That's why you have to get above it.
Yeah. Well, if you're smart, if you know that there are expenses added to that, you don't utilize those expenses. So meaning that you get your own studio, pay your own rent from that advance, so that you're not just adding on. I know a lot of people that were getting demo budgets. So I would have a high profile artist into my studio. I could easily say, well, hey, I want $5,000 for the day just to be working with this artist. Cool. That's great to get $5,000, but that $5,000 is coming out of your account. Time that you do that, it's just going to keep raising that. But if you buy the bullet and you work hard, there's a greater goal at the end of the tunnel. So I ended up taking I was doing $40,000 to $50,000 every 18 months, but knowing that within that time, I'll bring that to zero within 18 months
and that's what you were doing. You were bringing it to zero.
Yeah. By virtue of, and thanks to my amazing film and TV team that I had there, and from the cuts that I had from the records, thankfully, some of those records did okay. So it kind of canceled it out. And instead of I'm not a greedy person. I don't like taking more than what,
is fair. Right.
Yeah. And plus, $50K or $40K isn't that hard to make in our industry. You can make, in the Digital Daggers world with film and TV, as it was just starting, like no one was talking about film and TV. This is like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, no, definitely not talking about that. Right.
So we're getting syncs for like 20, 30K a side. We had a Ferrero Raffaello TV spot that only aired in Brazil, United Arab Emirates, Italy, and France, maybe, or Spain. And we made $500,000 from that easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just from 30.
How do you get there now? How do you get back to that now?
I don't think that it does exist, because I see them all the time. I have some people at different publishers, like the lower end of the spectrum, send me sort of briefs here and there. And some of the budgets are like $300K, $200K, $80K. But it's like a machine. This shit is just getting churned out. But yet there's this weird caveat that a lot of the publishers have now because of what happened with bands like Digital Daggers, like bringing film and TV into the space and an actual viable way of making money. Yeah.
I mean, better than any other way of making a traditional living of going on tour. I think that's a beautiful out,
Most definitely. Yeah.
And that's what you're basically working towards now, but you're saying that you're going to have to put much more of a strategy together to get them to take notice of you. Is that what's going on?
So a lot of the I still have my relationship at Sony, and all of the people that I'm still like friends with and converse with, their hands are tied. I send them stuff all the time just for their opinion, but I would also love to submit that stuff, but they can't because I'm no longer on their roster. So
you can't get back on their roster?
No.
Man. I mean,
I don't know how that works.
Basically agrees with, So once you're dropped, basically for a better term, once you're shown the door, especially with a big label like that. And I know that some of the labels, especially Sony TV, is really making a very hard movement into the Black communities because the president is Black and he's been a friend of mine, Big John. He's amazing.
John's amazing.
John's an amazing dude. And that's been his thing, is to bring equality to the music industry, and rightfully freaking so. And it's the thing that sells at the moment. It's not rock music. It's pop music and hip hop and R&B is really, and we've had people on this show before that have said, if you look at the ecosystem of rock music and heavier rock music at that level, we could be wiped out in a second.
Yeah.
Compared to what actually holds up the industry.
Yeah.
Pop and rap.
Yeah. Pop and rap. And R&B. I mean, it's probably the other way around. It's probably rap and pop.
But see, I think again, it's almost it's borrowing from the ideology of looking at things with the goldfish sort of mentality, right? Like, this is what's happening now, but it's not going to be forever. And all of this stuff goes like this, right? So I remember the time before Nevermind came out. No one was like, and before Pearl Jam 10 or anything like that, right? It was all, I remember
80s hair metal.
Yeah. Well, no, it was in Australia, it was more like club pop stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Yeah. Minogue.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Missed that one.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you were
there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like,
I was playing with dirt.
2 Unlimited. You remember 2 Unlimited?
Oh, of course.
Sounds familiar.
Roxette, that was like,
Yeah,
probably,
remember Roxette?
Yeah, Roxette, I've heard of
Limited,
it.
Kylie Minogue. Later on was Natalie Imbruglia.
I got to see Roxette a few years ago, back when I was still living in LA. I got to say, after moving from LA, I feel so much better. No disrespect at all.
Too much stress over there?
I think it's sometimes you have to, when you're so heavily steeped in an industry, sometimes you have to remove yourself to kind of not only appreciate it, but to also kind of grant yourself perspective. I rarely post on Instagram at all. People think I'm fucking crazy on there, I'm sure, because I am for the most part. When, this is why I don't drink anymore. But I'd post some weird shit, and I'd get all lit up and say my piece on there. I probably offended a lot of people, and my apologies, but I'm sure you respect me for being me.
Yeah.
But I posted an interview from Iggy Pop yesterday of him talking about how David Bowie saved his life. And he said, look, here's one piece of advice I'll give to you. Get the fuck out of LA. Remove yourself from, and that was right before Iggy released that first record, and he blew up.
Look at that. The Stooges.
It's like every time I would come home from tour, you obviously you get tour feet and you get like, oh man, what am I doing tonight? I'm not going to bed at 11. I want to go out.
Yeah.
Let's go out. We're still on tour, right? So you go out with all of your.
That's the worst, where you're like, come home and it's like, oh, hotel bar. There's no hotel bar here.
Yeah, dude, hotel bars.
Hotel bars, man.
Hotel bars. It's a thing.
It's the fabric of the universe, really.
Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah. But when you come home, you slowly but surely start to recognize, oh wait, oh fuck, I'm here where all the label people are, where everyone's kind of home from tour. I think there's, how do I say this? I lived in LA for 20 years, and I watched so many people come and go in the industry, like get signed, get dropped, and then, oh shit, you're working at fucking Safeway, or I don't know, you got a regular job somewhere, and that's weird. That is weird.
That is weird.
It's like,
it is.
Shit, we lost one. Those of us who have been kind of lucky to stay above water and keep doing it have lost a lot of people. Now, the reason I bring that up is that that's never going to change, ever. But it's going to get worse. And I think there's a bubble that's about to burst in our industry where you've got, holy shit, dude, how many people do you know who are in bands or have who have music on Spotify these days? It's
everybody.
Lot. Everyone.
Yeah.
So it's cheapens. This is just the way I look at it. Unless
dilutes the ability for quality to stick out amongst just, wannabes or people that just think that they can be at the level that you're at without putting in the grit. And we talk about that all the time. It brings me back to you could be a producer now from your home, but you didn't put in the time. You weren't an intern. You didn't go to the studio. You didn't get your ass handed to you. Yeah. You could just push a button and make instruments. And now that's equivalated to somebody who's been putting in all those years that actually makes really good music and is being, fucking submerged in the fucking saturation of the static that is the industry right now. And I completely agree with that. So what do you do to make sure that you stick out above everybody else? And I think that's something that you're going to be applying right now in your career that you haven't done yet, that I think it's going to be a new journey for you. And I think it's going to work.
Oh yeah. Most definitely. Well, this may sound arrogant, but I don't consider it as such. When I set myself out to do something, I make sure I get it done, and it does at least something, right? But having said that, I've had so many fucking failures. But you need those to grant yourself the successes, because otherwise
absolutely
you never learn, right? So to kind of, I think, to your question, I think what do? You adapt, right? So going from guitar player in a band to co-writing some songs and successful records, I've been one of those guys where I could go, okay, check, I've done that. Okay, I'm moving on. Check, I've done that. I'm moving on. I have no aspiration to, do the traditional co-write session for artists anymore. Because there's so much of it, I'd much rather not. I found success by complete accident, by starting Digital Daggers. Andrea and I, my partner in Digital Daggers, we were kind of positioned to write for the Katy Perrys, Kelly Clarksons, those types of people in the world. This is back
pop stars.
The late 2000s, 2007, 8, 9, 10. And, American Idol was still happening. Sometimes you get some Idol people in. It's a good opportunity. Who knows what could happen? But we got so frustrated with that. We wrote a ton of songs for Katy Perry for her second record, and that camp took a total left turn and went more electro pop. We were still kind of modeled off to the first record, which is a great record, but it was more organic than anything. So out of that frustration, I suggested, let's just stop doing everything right now and let's just write music for ourselves. Let's see what we can do. Let's have fun for a change instead of just punching in the clock and writing a 3-minute 33-second song. So out of that, not only a whole bunch of stuff happened from that. I was going through a breakup and all that kind of stuff. The two of us kind of bonded in so many different ways. And I think within that bond created this sort of explosion of excitement within the music that we were creating, because we were just really enjoying ourselves.
That's great.
And before we knew it, we're making like 20 grand a night. We're making 50 grand a night. We're making 10 grand here just on all of these placements that Sony and EMI were placing for us in all these TV shows. Next thing you know, you've just brought in like $500,000 within a year, and you're like, holy shit, we just created a brand accidentally.
Right. Well, because you were having fun and you focused on what you like to do as opposed to what you have to do. Exactly. But why does that relationship go sour eventually? I mean, if you made them that much money, why would they want to not fix what's not broken?
I think, I would, like myself and maybe maybe 2 or 3 other producers, co-writers, we all got canned in the same week. There's a lot more to the story that goes.
I'm sure there is, that they don't, cutting costs, cutting back.
And the acquisition of Sony ATV acquiring EMI, that was like, Mike, you were around at that time.
Yeah, I mean, when Roy Block came in and Gersh was out, Jody was kind of out, but not really. Yeah. Bandier was still there, and
there's a lot of politics that are involved.
John was on the rise in a major way. Platt was on the rise in a major way, and I felt like that was a really fun time. Actually, when the transfer of power, when it was still EMI, and I was there, I remember running into you in the
studio.
No, first year I was there for the Christmas party, 2003.
Oh, dude.
And I hadn't seen you in probably about 1.5 years, 2 years almost.
I was like gallivanting around the world.
Yeah. And like Memento was done. I remember Memento was done, and you and I were chatting it up, drinking in the afternoon at EMI. Because what they would do is they would shut the studio and shut the whole office down like at December 19th, and we would be closed for like 3 weeks.
God, I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday.
So it was that Friday afternoon, and I remember, and I just was walking down the hall because I had seen Stephen Clark hanging out with Matt Messer like a few weeks before that, and then you show up.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at you, and I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere. Like his haircut's different. I'm like, and you're like, Mike. I was like, oh shit, it's Space. so it was one of those deals, man. And it's always funny, how things come around. I mean, I've known you since 2003, so I mean that's 18 years I've known.
Actually, before remember
when we did that Sony showcase.
The showcase was it Maxwell's?
No, it was Mercury Lounge.
Yeah.
Oh, in the city?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's a great venue. That downstairs backstage area is kind of
wild.
Cool. Yeah.
So wild.
Mercury Lounge.
Tim Devine introduces us like, remember where you were when you had your faces ripped off by Memento.
Yeah, and like Matt Pinfield was there that night, and
Bill Bolton.
Bolton or whatever his name was. Yeah,
some big wigs.
That was a weird show because you guys were the only heavy band on there. It was like you guys, the Ravenettes,
and that young cat. There was a young rapper cat,
Jenna or Jinza or whatever.
Yeah,
he's like super famous now. Kenna.
Dude, he is amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's still doing anything anymore.
He was for a few years there, man. He was a hot deal, man.
Yeah,
a hot deal.
So why don't you just start sending your stuff to the actual different publishing houses and see if anything picks you up outside of what you're doing. Direct. Go direct.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like,
but again, I think it goes back to the point is like you're almost better holding on to it, dude. Because if you put it to a publishing house, this is the thing. I think over time, what's going to happen is that the model of the publishing company is going to lose. I think you're
going to go artist direct to a show instead of
you're going to go music supervisor direct.
Yeah,
because that's who you're shopping the shit to anyway.
Oh, that's all I do. Like I just sent some stuff over to one of my music supers the other day who made us a ton of money. I think it goes back to those relationships, right? Like the adage of getting the record deal. I think there's
the same thing. I think it's the same thing too. Back to that as well. It's like sending your stuff to a publishing company unsolicited is going to end up in the fucking bin. They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do not care. It is the same concept.
It's weird. Like I've even, as great as the relationships that I have with my Sony people that I've worked with extensively over the last 15 years, still like I point blank and I'm like, hey, is there any way that can we do an admin deal on something like this? Like, no, we're sworn.
They don't have the power anymore. I mean, they don't have the manpower anymore to do it. I mean, I've talked to people who still work at Sony ATV and they're like, you see the look in their face of like, this is not, you hear stories, and I'm not going to say it's Sony ATV. You hear this with any publishing company. They have massive stacks of songs that they basically sleep on and leave money on the table. All they care about is what currently is happening. And if you're not anywhere from 25 to 15 years old and are a songwriter, they do not give a fuck. 100%.
That's 100% true. And I think, the best
because it's not worth the time and the money to them, and they don't have the people like they used to actually work shit.
Exactly. I think we used to have these Sony camps, like film and TV.
Songwriting camps. So like Tammy Listener and all those people.
And it became I did a couple of them, and like I had already had like great success within film and TV, and I always asked like the team always wanted me to be involved because of the success that I had, but I knew in the back of my mind, like you can't recreate that. It's like striking lightning in a bottle sometimes, and trying to forge that. It's not really going to work. And I think we're living in that space of where, people are churning stuff out because they think that that's what the populace wants because they see it on their phone. And you're being culturalized by virtue of, people just throwing shit out there. It all pretty much seems the same these days anyhow, at least from my ears and eyes. But you got so many people trying to model after what they think is supposed to be the model of stuff. And there's so much of it. If you just kind of, rein it all back, keep to yourself, go against the grain. I found my success has come from not doing what everyone else is doing.
Take the path, take the road less traveled, essentially.
So what's the, coming up on over an hour now, kind of tying everything together. What's your advice to somebody that is wanting to get into selling their music to TV and sync licensing and shit like that, or even don't do that? Or, I mean,
no, I think it's still a viable. It's still massively viable because of the way that we consume more through the stuff, right? So
and there's different types of uses too.
Yeah, there's more of an opportunity now with just even little ad spots that you see on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. All of that is monetized, and that's all within the licensing space. I think from an artist standpoint, let's sort of draw the line in the sand from artist and business. From an artist standpoint, I think figure out what it is that you want to achieve. And when I pose that question, that includes, do I want to be famous? Do I want to be rich? And figure out what those two things are in the grand scheme of things and whether they're actually important.
I think also too is if you are going to pull that card of what's important to you, at the end of the day, there are far greater ways to make money a lot quicker and much more of it than doing this. Are you in for the haul, and what is your price at the point?
Man, that I couldn't agree with you more. This is Matt Messer one day gave me, and just for the record, Matt Messer is a fantastic human being and probably one of the best professionals that I've ever worked with in my entire career. Said to me, no one owes you a career.
Yep.
No one owes you anything. You have to earn it. So coupled with that, he says, look, at a time when I was asking him for some advice of where to go, he said, you chose this career. This is a topsy-turvy, this is a roller coaster of a ride, and there's no guarantee. So, buckle up and have conviction, dive in. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time, especially your own. So if you're not invested in putting in the time and the effort, you're literally wasting your own time and everyone else's.
Great advice.
But then, sorry.
No, you go. Go ahead.
I was going to say, once you figure out what it is you want to achieve, do you want to be an artist? What kind of artist do you want to be? Like, do you want to be a Bowie type person, or do you want to be a Drake type person? And I don't mean to differentiate those two between like one's good and one's bad. One's just
different. They're different.
Completely different, but as artistic as each other, because also you have to recognize the context of time in which those artists were and are relevant, right? Always relevant. And I think Drake's going to still be relevant also. I think the trickle off effect of what Drake has created, all of the wannabe Drakes, I don't think those are going to last.
Right. They'll fall off. So the true, from what you're saying, like the true artist essentially is going to stick around for the long haul because they're the true artist and they don't care what's going on around them. And they're always going to be relevant because they're working on what matters the most. It's a matter of capturing certain elements of that trueness and being able to retain the, delusions of grandeur kind of thing and make sure that you're not trying to be anybody but who you are. And that alone should resonate the most with your possible potential audience. And just by being strategic and using new methods to get your stuff out there and capturing that uniqueness that is you, I think everything just falls into place with that follow through.
Yeah, most definitely. And then in addition to that, on the other side, on the business side of things, there's delusions of grandeur, but there's also reaching far too high, but you have to you got to reach. If you want to get there, you got to reach. So yeah. I think being realistic is something that I think that people need to be a little bit more anchored in.
Grounded.
Yeah, very much so. But also, think ahead. My parents taught me how to, manage money very, very well. Don't blow your shit. Save.
Yep.
Save. Try not to pay taxes if you can.
Live with your parents as long as you can until you don't need to.
Yep.
That's something I learned.
You don't have to go out every single night, or it's, if you're investing in your future, invest wisely. And that is, like a lot of people watch Shark Tank these days.
Yeah, sure. It's my favorite show.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's some really juicy bits of advice in there. It helped me a lot.
Marcus Lemonis too. He's awesome. CNBC, great channel to apply the discipline. But I think that's, getting back to just kind of tying this all together. Having a past like you have has given you the opportunity to see things on both sides of the coin. It's like the successes and then how you stay relevant, and then really what matters, getting bitter about certain things because they didn't go your way, realizing outside of yourself and gaining perspective, reflection on that, and then kind of tying it all together and being able to move forward with confidence still based off of your trials and tribulations is a testament to your legacy, man. I mean,
thank you.
It's very impressive. So you're not stopping. You're finding your different pathways and carving out different avenues for yourself that are going to lead to the same type of fulfillment, but you may have to just apply different strategies to get there.
Yeah. And I think, trust me, I quit or wanted to quit or sell all of my shit so many times. But that's very fleeting, and then, it's like snap out of it. But I was going to say something else that I totally forget now. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The long play has always been, that's what I was going to say.
Good.
The age factor I've found has been somewhat of a misnomer. I think if you break it up into, if you're going to be, the artist aspect of which is more geared towards the younger generation. And that's part of the machine, but I think there's a big misnomer that once you reach a certain age, that's it, you're done. There are so many opportunities. And at the end of the day, if you're creating something that's good and has worth and is real and true, people will find it and they will either love it or hate it. But you've got to listen to both sides also.
Right. Right.
To people that if someone says, "Hey man, that sucks," don't get pissy. Say thank you. Why, and then ask why. Why do you think it sucks? So that you can back yourself. Don't.
Yeah. It's like people saying they don't like a certain person singing, right? And it's like that person's undeniably good, and they may have had some bad moments in their time. Their time, but they don't suck. They're far. You don't like them. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. But to say they suck is just ignorant, and that's you just being a hater. Yeah. So there's that difference kind of thing, and then there's people that just really suck, right? And then that's the thing that we're talking about with you creating an awesome fucking piece of art, music, a track with awesome sound quality, but it doesn't go anywhere because an artist not like you as much, maybe more somebody that like me or somebody that doesn't have the name you have to start from scratch. So how are you going to get that awesome quality in front of the right people that are going to respect that quality so you can actually have some fulfillment and justification for what you're doing?
Yeah, because that's easy. Well, it's hard for a lot of people because it's fear of failure, fear of success. Yep. Right.
You'll never know until it happens though. And that's part of winning. So, I mean,
you gotta throw it out there. I think
fail forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So in closed space, what do you got going on now? Like what's moving you forward? Like what's in the future for space and sound of space?
Right now, well, actually, I just finished up a small chunk of new Daggers songs, but unfortunately, which I'm very, very proud of, but that camp has unfortunately kind of gotten a little bit strange. So unfortunately that stuff's probably never going to see the light of day, which is really unfortunate. I started a new project, which is kind of like an offshoot of which it's a lot more colorful. It's a lot more uplifting. We dropped a single in December. The project's called Saved by Satellites. And it's a project that is fronted by an amazing female vocalist by the name of Luna Aura, who has her own stuff that's blowing up right now. Kind of bringing back the garbage kind of element to
cool.
rock, and she just nails it. It's amazing. And I have my other co-writer, TJ Courtney, who he had a band. He and I had a Billboard Top 40 song maybe 2 years ago that we had written. He's a part of this project. So we're it's like electro meets, it's got guitar in it. It's fun. It's got some 80s synth kind of things happening.
It's kind of like new wave, more organic electro pop, new wave.
It's a lot
with organic instruments.
Yeah. Like I've got a ton of analog shit here. And
yeah, look at that synth back there.
Oh yeah. A little Moog.
Yeah.
Fucking nice. Look at all those dials.
Hell yeah. I love buttons. But yeah,
tweaking it.
And we're just kind of rolling it out. We're about to put some marketing into play and see how it goes. But it's all trial and error, you know?
So people could find you. You could tell them where to find you, and, you know.
The best place to really
he doesn't like to be found. That's the thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sounds good.
Great.
But the most active on any social media is on Instagram, and you can find me at The Space Place.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how about MySpace?
MySpace.
Never could. Angel Fire.
Angel Fire.
Friendster, anyone? Friendster.
Friendster. Yeah, right.
What about ICQ?
ICQ.
ICQ.
Way before.
I didn't even heard of it.
Greg, you're not techie enough to know about ICQ.
Nope.
Anyway,
you can find it on IRC in the hacker forums.
Oh yeah. Okay. God. That's right. That's hacker stuff.
Anyway, brother.
Great movie, by the way.
And we'll catch up with you soon, man. And this should be out in a few weeks. And we'll let you
Thank you both. Thank you so much for.
Pleasure speaking with you. I know we could dive another 3 hours into this, and we'll have you back on eventually. I mean, that would be awesome. Like as soon as you're right before you launch this, you know, hit us up and we'll put it on.
That'd be awesome. That'd be great. Thanks.
All right, brother. We'll check you soon. Thanks so much for being on.
Peace. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, Space.
If there's anyone I know who's quietly successful, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he said, you know, he makes his living off of it, and he doesn't make like a shabby living off of it either. So I think there's a lot to be said about it. Granted, the time is different than when he did it, but he's still applying new techniques to an old game.
Yeah. So, and I think it's important, like what he said too, he needs to make sure that he's applying what's relevant to get his, you know, his awesomeness out there again, because if you don't, you're going to depend on older techniques that just don't work anymore. And I think he's learning that.
And I think too is that he's one of those guys who's ever growing and always changing and wants to share the information with people because it needs to be said. The other thing is too is that if you look at what he does and how he does it, he could be a one-man show and do it. And that's not to say that no one else could do that anywhere out there along listening to this.
Is he recording himself too, or is he working with an engineer?
No. Like, Space is a one-man show. If there's one thing I can say about Space is this: he is super fucking intelligent, probably has a super big IQ, and is less one of those guys who could pick up an instrument and just start playing it. So right there, kinesthetically, and he's really good at researching stuff so that it benefits him. And, you know, he knows he's playing the humble, but he knows so much more about, like when he says his hacker background. He truly, like programming wise, is a genius and knows about anything that we do marketing wise. He's already got his finger on the pulse of it, and he's just being humble, to be honest. Like he just knows how to kinesthetically go into things and make money at what he does. And it's not to say that no one could not do what he does. You just have to have the focus.
Yeah, he's really focused.
Focused all day long. All day long. So
well, there you go. There it is. You gotta focus and, you know, buckle down.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway,
buckle down.
We will see you guys next week. And don't forget about the State of the Union for Sunday nights. We broadcast it live on YouTube at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Greg, where can they find us?
TheMusicCombine.com is where you can find us. And then you can go to The Music Combine now on Facebook and YouTube.